My first book, Writing in Community. So this is my first book, Hannah Arendt and the Negro Question. And today I'm going to talk about how I was able to complete that first book through the power of writing in community. So I wrote this first book. This was my pre-tenure book. So it's the book that I had to write in order to earn tenure and promotion from assistant professor to associate professor. I was pre-tenure while I was married. I also had 4 children at the time. And so it was through the power of community that I was able to negotiate the demands of research, teaching, and service, and getting that first book done in order to earn tenure and promotion. So I was at a Research One institution where the expectation was that I finished that first book, which was, again, Hannah Arendt and the Negro Question. And I also was expected to publish, I think I was told 6 to 8 peer-reviewed journal articles in addition to writing the book, right? But writing the book was absolutely necessary in order to earn tenure. And I will say being in a writing group, writing in community was absolutely necessary and empowering me to finish the book in order to earn tenure and promotion. So, hello, my name is Dr. Catherine Sophia Bell, and I am a Black woman who did all the things that Black women are told we're supposed to do. So I got all of the degrees, all the certifications, had the successful career. I was married. I had 4 children. I had it all, and I felt trapped by all of it. So I liberated myself, and now I do things on my own terms, focusing on my love of reading, writing, speaking, and coaching, as well as connecting to my sensuality and sexuality through lovers and through Black kink and BDSM spaces, right? And so what I share on this channel are parts of the core pillars of my own liberation journey in an effort to encourage you on your own liberation journey while building community along the way. So let's get into it. I want to talk a little bit about how I got into this writing community pre-tenure for writing my first book. I want to talk about some of the challenges that we faced pre-tenure and getting our books written, and then the transformations that we also experienced through the writing group. Now, of course, for those of you who know me outside of this, if you've engaged with me and on any other social media platforms, or if you know me in real life, you know that I am owner of Belle Vie Academy. I offer signature programs and course suites and coaching for high achievers, happily unmarried, erotic empowerment and exit strategies. And I also have a writing group called Belle Vie Writers, right? And so I started Belle Vie Writers in 2020 when I was actually finishing my second book, which is Beauvoir and Belle, A Black Feminist Critique of the Second Sex. But long before I finished that second book, I had to write the first book, which was Hannah Arendt and the Negro Question. And I did that in my first writing community that I was in, which also helped to offer a model for the writing community that I built with Belle Vie Writers, right? So let's talk about how this writing community came together when I was still pre-tenure and working on my first book. So when I was at Penn State University, it was my second tenure track job. I started out at Vanderbilt University, and then after a few years, I was recruited to Penn State University, and I went to Penn State University. I restarted my tenure clock when I went to Penn State, and I negotiated for me to be able to go up for tenure early if I had finished the book sooner. But I also I got advice from a senior scholar, actually from Cheryl Wall, to restart my tenure clock so that I could maximize the time that I had for tenure. So her argument was it's better to have more time than you need than need more time than you have. So I restarted my tenure clock when I went to Penn State University. Again, the expectations for tenure there, I was in the philosophy department, humanities discipline in the College of Liberal Arts. And I was told I needed to publish 1 peer-reviewed, 6 to 8 peer-reviewed journal articles and 1 full book manuscript, right? Now, I will say, in addition to this book manuscript, Hannah Arendt and the Negro Question, I did also co-edit a book, which is this one, Convergences, Black Feminism and Continental Philosophy. But that co-edited book did not count as my tenure book. So the co-edited book is something that I did in addition to my single author tenure book, right? And I'll talk about that co-edited book another time. But again, focusing on the first book, which was Hannah Arendt and the Negro Question, I connected to this writing community. So at Penn State University, there was a kind of social organization that also served for like peer mentoring and other things at Penn State, where several faculty, Black women of color faculty, would get together monthly for like potlucks and things like that, just to connect. And this was across departments, across disciplines, across colleges, etc. So we would get together once a month. So the wonderful thing about that social community of getting together monthly for potlucks was that you could kind of meet different people who were working in different areas. It offered opportunities for connection, for collaboration, again, for peer mentoring and things like that. And so it was in the context of that group and the monthly potlucks, that I was able to connect to the people who ultimately formed that first writing community and writing group that I was in. So we called ourselves at the time Sisters in Writing, and it was an interdisciplinary group. So it included myself. I was in the philosophy department, although I'd also worked in African American and diaspora studies when I was at Vanderbilt University. We had someone from the history department, we had someone from the English department, and someone from women's gender and sexuality studies, right? And I'm going to say who those people were because I also have their books, and I'm going to show their books when I get to the transformation part, right? So anyway, we go from these potluck monthly meetings to this smaller group of us deciding to get together and form a writing group. And we initially would get together like we were thinking about, we all were in the humanities, we all were in disciplines where we had to publish that single authored manuscript as well as some articles. And so we just wanted to kind of rally together and support one another in those goals. I will say that we were at different stages in our tenure clocks, but ultimately we all had to get our books done for tenure, right? So some of the challenges that we were facing at that time included the ticking tenure clock, right? And so the university was very adamant about like what stage the book had to be in before you went up for tenure, before you submitted your dossier for tenure. So it couldn't be just a book contract. It couldn't even just be in the page proofs. The book had to be at a stage where you could no longer make any edits or corrections to the book in order for it to count toward tenure and to be, included properly in the dossier. So we all knew we had to like finish the book. It didn't necessarily have to be like the physical book was out, but it had to be the point where you couldn't make any edits anymore. So it could be like in production as long as you were at a stage where you couldn't make edits to the book anymore, right? So we all knew that we had to finish the book. We knew that the tenure clock was ticking and we needed to get the book done. So that was one of the challenges. Another one of the challenges at that time was just the anxieties of being Black women of color at predominantly white institutions and not assuming that the institution would do the right thing, right? And so, for example, we all knew that we were brilliant. We knew that we were amazing scholars. We knew that we were doing great mentoring and had great initiatives in our various disciplines and parts of the world. And we knew that our scholarship was amazing, but we did not assume that our excellence and our scholarship was necessarily going to translate into us actually earning tenure, right? And so there was still like this anxiety about not only finishing the book on time, but also even if you did all the things you were supposed to do, would the university or would the institution do the right thing? Right. And so one of the ways that I mitigated that, for example, was to make sure that I went on the job market the same year that I went up for tenure to give myself options, because I knew even if I did not earn tenure at that particular university, that I was tenurable and someone would be happy to hire me and offer me a position with tenure, right? So I actually went on the job market the year that I went up for tenure. I did get I got an outside offer. Ultimately, I got a retention offer and stayed at the institution where I started. Where I got tenure. But that's an option and something to think about, right? And I'll probably do a different video about that. But getting back to the challenges, right? So I mentioned there was the tenure clock that was ticking. There was being at a predominantly white institution with the anxieties about like, we know we're doing what we've been told we need to do. We don't know that the institution is necessarily going to do the right thing. And I will say that these anxieties and these stresses and concerns manifested not only emotionally, but also physiologically, right? And so, for example, for me in particular, I had a lot of like neck and shoulder pain. I had a lot of lower back pain. And for me, those are usually my body's way. Those kinds of pains in my body is my body telling me that I'm feeling stressed, that I'm feeling anxious, right? So it's weird that I think in my mind, I feel stressed or I feel anxiety, but my body usually tells me when I feel stress or anxiety when I'm having neck and shoulder tension or lower back pain. For me, the embodied symptoms of stress or manifestations of stress also included migraines, right? Like having headaches. And I didn't really have migraines before going through the tenure and promotion process, right? So again, these are some of the challenges that we experienced, right? So I would love for you to, like, if you are a tenure track professor or if you have tenure at whatever institution you currently work at, did you have similar kind of challenges in your tenure and promotion process, and how did those things manifest for you? So I would love to hear about that in the comments, because I think there's a lot of overlap in how that manifests in our bodies and how we experience it, but also different people experience it in different ways. So I'm interested in hearing, how that manifested for you or how you experienced that. and again, how that stress shows up in your body, right? Okay, so I talked about how the group got together. I talked about some of the challenges and stresses that we were facing as we were working on getting our books done, again, for tenure and promotion. And so now I want to get into what I think is like some of the more good stuff, which is the transformations that we experienced, right? So how did we kind of, how intentional we were about building this community of writers, or what we call sisters in writing, and what were the transformations that we experienced, okay? So again, part of the power of this group is that we were interdisciplinary. So again, I was in philosophy, we had someone in history, someone in English, someone in women's gender and sexuality studies who was also a poet, right? And so there was power in having a group that was interdisciplinary because we could have really interesting conversations without being kind of stuck in our specific disciplines, or be able to communicate what our projects were outside of our specific disciplines, right? So I'll give you an example. Again, I'm a philosopher. Philosophers, I tend to joke, philosophers make stuff up, right? Like if our argument is sound, we can kind of make things up as we go along. So we're notoriously bad historians, even though I'm someone who actually does do archival research and tries to provide a good historical context for the figures and the topics that I take up. So it was good for me to be in conversation with a proper historian who was trained as a historian, as I was exploring some of the kind of historical context for my project, again, for Hannah Arendt and the Negro Question. The person who's in English and in literature was very good at storytelling and crafting a narrative and things like that. So she was very helpful for that aspect of my project. And then the person who was in women's gender and sexuality studies and the poet is just an all around, just beautiful human being, and always like loving and affirming with whatever we were working on, right? So there was power in having this very intentionally interdisciplinary community, right? So that was part of the transformation. It was just being in an interdisciplinary context while we were all working on our various book projects. One of the other things that we did that was very powerful is that we worked out together. So we not only kind of built our minds together and worked our minds together, we also connected to our bodies together. So at that time, I had just finished doing a yoga teacher training. So I was certified as a yoga instructor at the 200-hour level. So I would offer yoga and meditation courses for us so that we can connect to our bodies as we were working on our book projects. We had someone in the group who was like a track star in college and did Muay Thai and kickboxing. So we did kickboxing together with her. And then we also decided to train together for a half marathon. Now, I'm somebody, I was not an athlete at all when I was in high school or when I was in college. So this was my first time. I mean, I'd worked out like in graduate school, but I was, again, I would not consider myself to be particularly athletic, but it was very nice to be able to connect to our bodies through yoga, through kickboxing, and training for this half marathon. And we literally took baby steps from doing a 5K to a 10K to the half marathon. So we built up to the goal. And what was wonderful about training for the half marathon, and I still train for races now for this reason, it's one of those things where I couldn't roll out of bed and do, like now I could roll out of bed and do a 5K, but at the time I couldn't roll out of bed and do a 5K or a 10K or a 15K or a half marathon. So it's like I had to follow a particular training schedule and commit to, doing that schedule consistently in order to get to the goal. And it became a nice metaphor, a nice symbolism for breaking the book project down into smaller parts in order to finish the goal, right? So that ended up being a lovely kind of benefit and transformation that we experienced together in the writing group. And ultimately, we finished our books together. So now for the big reveal in terms of who else was in the writing group and how we finished our book. So again, my book is Hannah Arendt and the Negro Question. This came out in 2014. This was my tenure book, and it since has been translated into French. So that was my book. We also have this book regarding Muslims from slavery to post-apartheid by Habiba Badaroon, who is our lovely poet and just an angel on earth. I love Habiba dearly, so she was also in the group. We have Negotiating Empire, The Cultural Politics of Schools in Puerto Rico from 1898 to 1952 by Solcire del Moral. We call her Solci. Also love Solci dearly. She was our fabulous historian in the group. And then last but not least, we have Black Folks in the Politics of Racial Representation by Shirley Moody Turner, right? So these are all the people that was in that initial writing group that I was in order to write my first book, right? So the good news is we got together, we wrote in community, we supported each other through all of the challenges that we had, and we experienced these transformations of, again, learning together, working out together, writing together, finishing our books together, and ultimately we all got tenure and promotion, right? So that is fabulous. So at this point, because I had that model of the power of writing in community, I was able to bring that into my process for developing Belle Vie Writers, where I wrote my second book, right? So again, the second book project, it just came out in 2024. It came out earlier this year, actually, Beauvoir and Belle, A Black Feminist Critique of the Second Sex. But what I did in order to start Belle Vie Writers is I took my email list, because I had been coaching and doing other things, throughout the time that I was a professor from like 2011 up until now. So I had a nice reading list and a nice email list. So in 2020, we were in the midst of the pandemic. There was all kinds of social justice issues that were going on. And I really needed like an anchor in a community as I was working on my second book project, or my second single authored book project. And so I just reached out to my email list and I said, listen, I need to finish up this book. I know that there is power in writing a community. Who would like to join me for, finishing up whatever writing projects you may be working on? And so I had a wonderful response to that call, and I started Belle Vie Writers in 2020, and it has proven to be a similarly effective and successful opportunity to write in community and see book projects get done, right? And so for me now, one of my kind of why and intention and excitement about Belle Vie Writers, in addition to just providing a space that is predominantly Black and women of color, where we get together and we write in community virtually, members of Belle Vie Writers also have access to the course suites and community in Belle Vie Academy. So for example, right now, Belle Vie Writers includes access to the Writers Course Suite. It includes access to the High Achievers Course Suite. It includes access to at least two other course suites the Professor's Playbook and also Exit Strategies, right? So membership in Belle Vie Writers right now includes access to all of those course suites. As with Sisters in Writing, I showed you all the books that we finished when we were doing Sisters in Writing. It's been the same with Belle Vie Writers. So again, we have my book, my second book, Beauvoir and Belle, A Black Feminist Critique of the Second Sex. So I wrote this book literally with Belle Vie Writers. And then we also have this book, New Growth, The Art and Texture of Black Hair. And this is by Jasmine Nicole Cobb. So she wrote this book while being in Belle Vie Writers. So shout out to Jasmine Cobb. We also have Power, The Rise of Black Women in America, How Black Women Embody the American Dream, Defy Oppression, and Win by Charity Elder. She was also a member of Belle Vie Writers when she was finishing up this book. We have Nuclear Nuevo Mexico, Colonialism and the Effects of the Nuclear Industrial Complex on Nuevo Mexicanos. And this is by Mariah Gomez, again, a member of Belle Vie Writers. And last but not least, we have Finding La Negrita by Natasha Gordon Chippenberry, who also finished this book up and worked on this book while in Belle Vie Writers, right? And so hopefully you have found this video helpful in thinking about and talking about the power of writing in community in order to finish projects. I think a lot of times, I know this because this is feedback that I get from members of Belle Vie Writers and experience that I have for myself. A lot of times we think we have to write in isolation. There can be a lot of anxiety and avoidance when it comes to writing. There can be a tendency to like binge write and think like, if I don't have 3 hours or 5 hours or 10 hours or a whole week straight to write, then I can't make progress on my projects. And what Belle Vie Writers offers as a writing community is some empowerment around the writing process to cultivate a daily writing habit. So for example, we get together in a virtual writing community and you can opt in or opt out as frequently as is helpful for you. We have group coaching that is also a part of Belle Vie Writers. So in addition to having dedicated time to write and focus on the writing, you can opt into group coaching sessions that are available. And in addition to that, there is the support again of the course suites that I described, right? So again, hope this video has been helpful in thinking about the power of writing in community and giving you very concrete, tangible examples of that, not only in the writing group I was in Pre-Tenure for us all to finish our tenure books and earn tenure, but also in Belle Vie Writers, where we see several books have already come out of that community. Again, my goal is to, I don't know if I said this before, but my goal is to see 100 books published through Belle Vie Writers. At this point, we have about 7 books that have been published. So I showed you, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5 of the 7 books, including my book that have already been published. And then there are 2 that are kind of in production that will be out. So they've already kind of gone through the review process and all of that kind of stuff. And they just have to go through the production process with the presses. So when those books come out, I'll be happy to report back on those books. But I'm excited that out of the 100 book goal that I have for LiB Belle Vie Writers, we have 7 of those 100 books have already been in. So if you are somebody, whether you're an academic or not an academic, but you're working on writing projects, whether they're articles or whole books, and you're looking to connect with community as you cultivate a writing practice and writing habit and writing ritual, I would love to invite you to join LiB Belle Vie Writers. There will be links available in the description for you to explore that and join me. And I will say, the main lesson is that it's powerful and effective to write in community. I would love for you to be a part of LiB Belle Vie Writers community. I appreciate you joining this discussion. If you have any insights or comments or main takeaways, I would love for you to share those with me in the comments section. Definitely like this video if you're watching it. And if you're not already subscribed, subscribe so that you can get more of this content. Up to this point, I've done a lot of videos on exit strategies and leaving the academy. Right now, I'm focusing more on LiB Belle Vie Writers and the power of writing in community. And so I'm going to continue to do videos related to LiB Belle Vie Writers. I will do another video on going from the dissertation to the first book, because my first book, Hannah Arendt and the Negro Question, was related to but is distinct from the dissertation. And so I do want to do a video about kind of the transition from the dissertation to the book project. And I also will talk about my experience co-editing the book Convergences, Black Feminism, and Continental Philosophy. So again, shoot me some comments, some questions, some insights, some takeaways in the comment section. I love to engage with the community in the comment section. And also, if you're looking for a writing community, LiB Belle Vie Writers may be the community for you. So hopefully this has been helpful information about what that community is about and the transformations that we experience in that community and the ways that we overcome those challenges to writing in isolation in that community. Okay, I will see you next time. Bye.